Hi, my name is Tom, and in this video, I'm going to give you the resources that you need to take and pass the FAA Part 107 test to become a commercial drone pilot. The first question that most people have is, do I need to take this test? And really, only you can answer that question, but if you're doing anything commercial with your drone footage, then yes, you need to take this test. If you're just recording some videos and photos and showing them to your friends and family like at home, and that's it, and you're not sending them anywhere or distributing them anywhere or selling them anywhere, then no, you don't need to take the test. That's totally recreational. You don't need to worry about it. Commercial usage of your footage is a really broad term. And so the most obvious commercial usage is if somebody pays you for your footage or they hire you to film something for a project and they give you money for it. That's very clearly commercial usage of your footage. But even if you don't consider yourself a filmmaker, you could still be using the footage commercially. So if you're a real estate agent and you're taking pictures or videos for a listing, that's commercial usage. Even if someone offers you something instead of money. So if someone says, hey, come over and help me out with this thing and I'll give you a 6-pack of beer, that's commercial usage. Or if they're offering you tickets to an event or anything in return for your footage or creating footage for them, that is commercial usage, and you do need to take this test so that you can get your commercial license. YouTube can be a little bit tricky because you might not be intending to use your footage commercially, but it is possible to monetize off of videos on YouTube, and so it can get a little fuzzy. I really recommend erring on the side of caution, and even if you think there's the slightest possibility that your footage at some point is going to be used for something commercially, protect yourself and make sure you have the license that you need. The good news is there's so many resources for this test. The test itself isn't really that bad, and you're doing it on your own time. So if you're someone who only needs like 3 days to practice for it, fine. If you need 2 months to practice for it, fine. You can make it work for you, and that eases so much pressure. As I mentioned, there are a ton of resources for taking this test and passing this test. The reason that I'm making this video is because there are almost too many resources. And what I found when I was prepping for the test was that I felt a little bit overwhelmed, and I didn't know necessarily what was the best resource, what was the most useful one. After a while, I felt like I was starting to just see the same information repeating, and I kind of felt like I was spinning my wheels, and I was not 100% confident that I was getting all of the best information. And so what I've done is I found the 3 resources that are the best, that you can forget everything else, focus on these things, and I have no doubt that you're going to take and pass the test, no problem. So I'm going to break this video down into 3 parts. The first part is the resources that you need, most important. Second part, the test itself. There's a lot of information about the test online, but when I was studying, I couldn't find anything that clearly laid out the process. And so I want to clear that up for you and answer a couple questions I had that I couldn't find answers to when I was prepping. The third part is after the test. So many resources prep you for the test, and yay, you take the test and you pass the test, and then after that, they just kind of disappear and leave you there. There are some really important things you need to know and to do after you take the test. And I want to make sure that is very clear. So those are the 3 parts. We'll jump right into it. Part 1, resources. Before I jump into the 3 resources that I recommend, I really do need to give credit to Matt Johnson and his Part 107 video, because this was the video that I came across that really made me understand why I needed to take this test and made the test seem totally accessible and like something that I could achieve and something that I could really actually pass, and it wasn't really a big deal. He has a great way of explaining it. He provides a lot of great resources, and I honestly just can't recommend his channel enough. His work is unbelievable. He has so many behind the scenes things that just you learn so much from watching his videos. He has a lot of stuff specifically about drones, especially the DJI Mavic. He even goes into like how to color grade and settings and getting the best possible footage from your drone, and his channel is awesome. Please check out Matt Johnson. I wouldn't have passed the test without the things that he provided. However, even after that awesome video and even after going through those resources, what I noticed was I clicked on every link and then my browser had like 20 or 30 tabs open, and some of them were like these 100-page PDFs and these websites with 1,000 links on them, and I just felt overwhelmed. I want to cut through all that noise and distill it down to the most essential resources that you need. So here they are. The first resource, most important resource, is the official FAA study guide. This is the study guide made by the people who produce the test. So it has everything that you need to know on it. It is an 80-page PDF document. And when a lot of people see that, their first question is like, how can I get that information without reading an 80-page PDF? And the answer to that is just read the PDF. It has everything you need to know, everything that's going to be on the test. And the good news is the FAA doesn't try to trick you. They're not throwing curveballs at you. There's no trick questions. It's all of the information. It's not even really hard to read. It's pretty easy to understand. And you'll definitely need to go through it a few times. The first time you read it, it'll probably be kind of murky. And then as you gain a little more knowledge and familiarity and you go back through it, it'll become a lot more clear. But that is your number one best resource, is the FAA's official study guide. Resource number 2, Tony Northrup's 2-hour-long Part 107 study guide video. This is a totally free video, but honestly, if he charged money for it, it would be so worth it. This is such a good, helpful tool. In this video, Tony breaks down the entire study guide, all of the information on it. He fills in all the gaps, and he takes the more complicated parts and he breaks them down in a really clear and easy to understand way. And so that combined with the study guide is all of the information that you need to know. Just like with the study guide, you're going to need to watch this video more than once, and it's 2 hours long, so you probably want to break it down into chunks. Once you've gone through it at least once while really just like focusing on it, then you can kind of like leave it on in the background and listen to it as you're doing other things. That information will still get into your brain. The third resource is how you can apply that knowledge that you're gaining, and that is an app that's available for iOS and Android called Remote Pilot. It does cost $5. I have nothing to do with this app. I'm not connected with it. I just paid for it, and it played such a huge role in me passing this test that I can't recommend it enough. Remote Pilot takes all of the FAA sample questions and puts them into a format that's very, very similar to the real test. And it's so helpful to have that. The sample questions are available all over the place online. Lots of great websites like 3D Robotics, they have them, and it's totally free and you can go through and see them and mark them and stuff. But the reason I recommend this app is because it's so similar to the real test. They have, I think it's over like 140 questions total that you can go through and you can answer all the questions. And when you take a practice test, it generates a new 60-question test every time based on those questions. So every practice test you take is a little bit different. And that's exactly how the real test works too. They have their actual test questions. When you sign on the computer to take your test, they pull 60 of those questions and you get a test that's slightly different from the test that anybody else takes. The first thing you'll notice when you open the app is that visually, it's not super appealing. It kind of looks like an app from the late 90s if they had apps in the late 90s. And the reason they did that is because it looks very similar to the real test. So when you sit down to take the actual test, it's going to look very familiar, and that's going to help ease a lot of your stress and anxiety. The format of the Remote Pilot app is very similar to the real test, where you have your progress, all your questions over here, you've got your current question at the top, you've got all your answer choices here, and you can mark them and go back. It's the same exact system that the real test uses, and so that's why it's so helpful. The added bonus too is when you answer each question, it explains why that's the correct answer. It gives you a little, short paragraph description, explanation about why that's the correct answer. When I was practicing for the test, I was using this app and taking these practice tests like 10 times a day. And I did that up until I was consistently scoring 98 or 100%. Once you hit that point, then you're ready to take the test. The important thing to remember though, after you start taking these practice tests enough, you'll start to memorize the questions. And as soon as you see the first few words, you're like, oh, that's B, that's C. But that's not helping you. It's really important to make sure you force yourself to understand and remember the why behind each answer and to understand how you got to each answer. So that way, since these aren't the same questions that are on the real test, when you see the real test questions, you're going to know how to get them and you're not just going to be trained and conditioned to click the right bubble. A good way to do that is to go through the test and kind of pretend like you're explaining it to somebody else who doesn't know anything about this thing. The best way to learn something is to teach it, and so if you pretend or if you actually teach someone the stuff that's in the test, that's going to be the best way to really drill it into your brain so that you know it and you understand it. So those are the 3 resources. If you use the FAA study guide, watch Tony's video, and use that practice test, that's all that you need. You do not need to pay for courses. You do not need to overwhelm yourself with 1,000 other things. You just need those 3 resources, and I have no doubt that you're going to do incredibly well when you take the actual test. Part 2, the test. There is a lot of information online about this test, but when I was prepping, I couldn't find a very clear explanation of how the whole process works. So here's how it works. You'll know that you're ready to take the test when you're consistently scoring 98 and 100% every time you take the practice tests in the Remote Pilot app. Once you've hit that point and you feel like, okay, I'm not learning anything more, I'm not gaining any new knowledge, that's when you're ready to take the test. The test must be taken at an official FAA Knowledge Testing Center, or KTC, because they love acronyms. The FAA provides a directory of all the KTCs throughout the country. The link to that will be down below. All you need to do is find your state, find the one closest to you, and that's the one you're going to use. I had to drive about 90 minutes to the closest testing center, and I think that that's a little unusual. I think most people will probably have a testing center closer to them than that. But even so, the 90 minutes drive wasn't a big deal because I was able to just listen to Tony Northrup's video again on the way there, and that information was super fresh in my brain when I went in to take the actual test. So the long drive was kind of a benefit in a way, so just make it work for you however you can. Once you find the testing center that you want to use, you do not make your appointment through the testing center. You need to call the CATS hotline, which is not nearly as entertaining as it sounds like it's going to be. It is just the computer-aided testing system number, and you call them, and that's the FAA's number to make an actual appointment. And they're going to take your personal information, they're going to ask you where you want to take the test, and they're going to help you find an appointment. Most testing centers are open Monday through Friday, like the whole day. I think some of them are even open on Saturdays if you need a weekend appointment. And you don't really need to give a ton of notice. You can probably make an appointment for the very next day if you want. So as soon as you're getting those good scores on the practice tests and you're like, I want to take the test tomorrow, just call them up, make an appointment for the next day, go take the test, you're good to go. Important thing to know, you do need to have a credit card ready when you're making this phone call, because this is when you're going to pay your $150 testing fees. The day of the test, they ask that you're there 15 to 20 minutes early. I recommend getting there significantly earlier than that, so that way you're not rushed, you're not stressed out. You get there, you have time like in the parking lot in your car to review some things, take a break, eat a snack, whatever you need to do to make sure you're totally ready to go. You can't bring anything into the testing room, so leave any of your extra stuff in your car. You do need your ID, so make sure you do bring that in with you. Anything that you have, your car keys, your wallet, whatever, they're going to take and they're going to lock it up while you go take the test. You're not going to bring that stuff into the room with you. When you go into the testing room, they will provide you with paper, pencils, a small calculator, which you probably won't really need, and the test booklet. The test booklet is a pretty thick book that has all of the charts and diagrams that you're going to need. So when you see a test question that says refer to figure 72, you're going to open up that booklet to figure 72, and that's what you're going to use to answer that question. This test booklet is also really helpful because at the front of it are all of the legends and keys for like sectional charts. So if you have a hard time remembering what a dashed magenta line means, or a solid blue line, or a little flag, or how to find what frequency to use to contact air traffic control at an airport, all of that stuff is in the booklet that they give you. So you don't have to memorize all those things. It's right there for you. The test itself is 60 questions. You have 2 hours to complete it, and you need to score at least 70% to pass. It's pass-fail, so you don't get like an A+ or a B- or anything. I really took my time with this test, and I went through and like spent my time on each question and went through and rechecked things and marked questions to go back to, and I still finished in under an hour. So you should have no problem finishing within the 2-hour time limit. You get your score right away, and if you did miss any questions, they will give you the chance to go back and review them. And that's all there is to the test. It's a pretty simple process. It's not scary or unpleasant. You'll do just fine. So that brings me to part 3, after the test. Worst case scenario, if you fail the test, it's really not the end of the world. You're not prohibited from ever getting your license. All you need to do is wait 14 days, and then you go through the process of making another appointment and taking a test again. The bad part is you do need to pay another $150, and I'm sure you probably don't want to do that. we don't even need to talk about that. You're gonna pass the test and you're not going to have to worry about it, so we don't need to worry about what happens if you fail because you're not going to fail. You're going to pass the test. The biggest thing after you pass the test, and I think a lot of people overlook this, is once you pass, you are not licensed to use your drone commercially. Once you pass the test, you are eligible to become licensed to use your drone commercially. I think a lot of people are taking the test, passing the test, and then being like, yay, I'm done. And the answer is no, you're not done. You need to go to another FAA website called IACRA, iacra.faa.gov, and this is where all pilots and flight instructors keep track of their licenses and their certifications and all their information. You're applying to be a pilot, you need to use this resource. All you need to do is go to IACRA, create a new account, and submit a new application for your license. It's a pretty easy process. It only takes a few minutes. When you pass your test, the testing center will give you a form that has all your information on it, and it has an exam ID. You need to take that exam ID number and put it on your IACRA application, because that's going to tie your application to your test score, proving that you're eligible for a license. When you finish the application, they'll send it to the TSA to do a background check, and then once you pass that background check, then you're issued your official commercial drone pilot's license. That step is so important, so please don't forget to do that. Once you have your license, it's good for 2 years. At the end of 2 years, you have to take another test and be recertified, but that's not a big deal and that's nothing to worry about. So that's it. Those are the resources you need. That's how the test works. That's what you need to do after you pass the test. And if you follow the advice and the information and the resources provided here, I have no doubt that you're going to do great and you're going to pass on the first try and you're going to feel really good and you're going to do great. So that brings me to the bonus information, which is just a few extra things that I think might be helpful for you as you prepare to take this test. First thing is, I think there's a lot of frustration around this test, and some people are annoyed that the test doesn't seem super relevant to how they're going to be using their drones to capture footage and images. And that's true. Like, you're probably not going to be contacting air traffic control. You're not going to be landing on a runway. You're not going to be flying really high up in like Class B airspace or something. But it's still something you need to do. If you live in the United States, you have to take this test. So instead of fighting it, I really advise that you keep an open mind and embrace the process of the test. And honestly, I actually found it pretty enjoyable and pretty interesting. It was sort of a fun thing to learn about and to go take the test, and it felt really good to get the license, and it feels official, and that's all good things. So even though it might not be super relevant to how you're planning to use your drone, I really encourage you to keep an open mind, embrace the process, and really try to actually enjoy the stuff that you're learning about. What I think is the FAA's purpose with this test. I think that the goal here is to really help you to understand the responsibility that comes with piloting an aircraft. Just like with a car, when you're driving on the road and you're sharing the space with other people, when you're flying your drone in the sky, you're sharing the sky with other people, and you're also entering into an environment where there are already systems set up for how air traffic works. And the FAA, I think, wants you to understand that, wants you to appreciate that, and it's pretty impressive once you kind of get a little introduction into what they do to ensure that things are safe and that you need to play your part in keeping things safe. And I think that's the real goal here, is to help people understand and appreciate that more than testing you on exactly how you're going to be using your drone. As an added perk for me, I'm not the biggest fan of flying. I get kind of nervous on airplanes, still have to do it a lot, but I'm not super crazy about it. After doing this, and after learning just a little bit of what manned aircraft and commercial pilots have to know, it actually helped ease and reduce my own fear of flying, because you really see how trained and how professional and how knowledgeable these people have to be, and you really see the systems that are in place to ensure safety. And it really gives you a whole different appreciation for pilots and what they do and what they have to know, and the fact that they can get you where you need to be safely and reliably. So that was just kind of an added benefit that I didn't expect. And finally, by participating in this, you are helping the drone communities and the filmmaking communities, because these are such awesome tools. If you really think about what they are and what you can do with them and how fast the technology is evolving, they're so cool, and we don't want to lose them. And there's so much controversy and misunderstandings around them that you really want to help people to understand that there's nothing to fear with drones. So by being a licensed pilot, by being a responsible pilot, you can help people to understand that they are legitimate, that there are professional uses for them, and there's something to be excited about rather than something to be scared of. So that's pretty much it. Your next step is to download the FAA study guide, watch Tony Northrup's video, and then use the remote pilot app to take the practice tests. And if you do those things, you're gonna pass the test and you're gonna do great. I tried really hard to make sure I explained things clearly and concisely, but if you have any questions or I didn't answer something completely, please feel free to just reach out and ask, and I will do my best to provide an answer or at least point you in the direction of the answer you need. So that's it. I hope you guys have a great day. Good luck on your test, but you don't really need luck because you're super prepared because you have all this awesome information. So I'll see you guys later.